Well, good morning. This is Jeff from Arcanum Holistic Clinic, and I just have a few minutes to do a short video this morning. I wanted to pick up this article that came out this week from the clevelandclinic.org, and the article, as you can see on the screen, is called How Stopping Smoking Boosts Your Fertility Naturally. The subtitle is Understanding the Impact for Both Men and Women. So as always, I'm going to go through the article, of course, highlight all the good points they make, and then I'll fill in any gaps or any incorrect information or missing information. Actually, the first thing I want to point out, this jumped out at me this morning, was here we have this fertility article, and it's addressing points that affect both men and women. Of course, it takes two to make a baby, but mysteriously, this article is categorized under women's health, as often anything to do with fertility is kind of focused on the women, where, as we've seen in some of the articles we've been looking at, is it very much it shows up as being very equal. It takes it as I just said, that old expression, it takes two to tango, or it takes two to make a baby, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Anyways, I'm sorry, that was just a side point. Let's get into the actual content of the article. And so, yeah, they're going to just talk a lot about the ill effects of smoking on fertility for both men and women, and I'm just going to highlight some of the key points they make here. This, I guess, one of their opening statements. They say quitting smoking is one of the best natural ways to boost fertility. Women who stop smoking double their chances of getting pregnant each month. Okay, so that's just a good general thesis statement. I'm going to scroll down. And they get into some specific question and answers here with a Dr. Vij. And the question is, how much does smoking impact men's fertility? He says there's more inflammation in the semen of men who smoke. This can weaken the sperm and make pregnancy more difficult to achieve. And of course, as we know, the general issue of inflammation is the cause of so many chronic health issues and chronic problems. But yeah, just we have the direct link there between smoking, the inflammation in the semen, and the weakening of the sperm. I'll just move down. He says they also contain heavy metals like cadmium and lead, which are shown to be the primary agents of sperm damage. So there we have some very specific toxins, and of course, what I'll actually talk about in a couple minutes as we get further down in the article. But yeah, they certainly do a good job in this article of identifying the very specific problems. But as we'll get to, their solution is quite weak. It's just actually a prescription drug solution that's recommended. So of course, I'll have something different to say about that. This part here, studies show that smoking can lead to DNA damage in sperm. Some evidence shows that men with elevated sperm with DNA damage may have reduced fertility and higher miscarriage rates. So it's interesting. It's linking miscarriage with actually a factor on the male side. So that's not too surprising once you understand the full extent of how fertility works, being both a man and woman thing. But we'll also go on in this how does it affect men question. He says smoking is a risk factor in erectile dysfunction, and of course he says, well, without the erection, of course, that makes fertility more difficult. Now going on, how does smoking affect women's fertility? Things have been identified, such as failure to conceive at both 6 and 12 months, the points of measurement, and damage to the eggs and the ovaries, as well as ectopic or tubal pregnancy. Now he says once a woman becomes pregnant, smoking increases the risk of miscarriage. So in this article, we see the risk of miscarriage coming from both sides. If the man is smoking or if the woman is smoking, both of those will lead to factors of miscarriage. And he goes on to say later in pregnancy, smoking can cause birth defects, growth restrictions, and maternal high blood pressure. Now, when he talks about the issue of quitting smoking, of course, if that's what someone is trying to do while they're trying to get pregnant, he says, when it comes to quitting smoking, don't approach it with an all or nothing attitude. If totally quitting isn't realistic, cutting down can make a meaningful difference in fertility. And what I add here as well is actually this is something that we will sometimes need to be adding to our natural fertility protocol. Of course, we have the full protocol, regardless of if someone is needing to quit smoking or not. We have all the protocol related to diet and all the lifestyle factors, the sexual practices, the natural sexual practices. If you don't have our book, all of that is laid out at www.naturalfertilitybook.com. You can download our book for free. But the point I wanted to make here is, as to say, going beyond our basic fertility protocol, is that we also can use a natural homeopathic smoking or stopping smoking protocol, which gets into all the aspects. There's the physical aspects of quitting smoking, the physical part of the addiction or the craving, and then there's also the whole emotional dynamic. So all of that is handled in our homeopathic stopping smoking protocol, and you can ask us about that if you'd like help with that. And just to go on in the article, this is interesting too. He talks about the impact of secondhand smoke, where it says exposure to secondhand smoke in the household is bad for female fertility. And there's specific points here. Once a woman gets pregnant, secondhand smoke can increase the risk of miscarriage, low birth weight, and learning disabilities. Now, this is all from secondhand smoke. There's abundant evidence that shows that smoke exposure to a newborn baby can lead to respiratory infections, asthma, and sudden infant death syndrome. And then I like some of the points here. They are looking at some of the common myths about smoking and fertility. So myth number 1, well, I'll just stop smoking once I get pregnant to protect my unborn child. So, okay, so that's a certain idea that, okay, well, just once I get pregnant, then I'll stop. But they're really emphasizing that as much as possible, to stop smoking at least 3 months before conception, right? That has to be cleared out of the body, and there's factors leading into the fertility, leading into the health of the baby, which are happening, of course, long before the conception happens. Of course, that's completely consistent with our whole philosophy of our natural fertility in general. Even if we're not talking about smoking, we still have this very approach to the health much earlier than conception, as early as possible, of course. The myth number 2, vaping and e-cigarettes are safe alternatives to smoking. And they highlight that no, those still contain toxic chemicals that can harm sperm. Nicotine itself has also been shown to be harmful. And this is an interesting one that caught my eye. Myth number 3. So I never even really heard this as a common myth or an old wives' tale or anything like that. But myth 3: smoking after sex is relaxing and can help promote pregnancy. Now, from our perspective, again, if you look at our natural fertility book, in chapter 8, we outline our whole understanding of the very kind of the healthy energetics of sexuality, that the way we look at it. And of course, that's tied in not only to the physical activity of sex, and us being physically healthy as far as sexual basic capacities, but also the whole emotional dynamics, and this whole interesting thing about smoking after sex to supposedly be relaxing. That, in our perspective, is really an illustration of smoking being used as kind of a substitute for looking at any of the underlying emotional issues which may have not been dealt with or partially dealt with. And that's the whole thing about healthy sexuality. It will actually bring up some of the darker or more negative emotions in a relationship which needs to be dealt with. That's positive, that's healthy. Those need to be brought into the light and need to be dealt with. But this whole idea of smoking as relaxing, they're correct to point out, isn't the right word. It's more a sense of covering up or masking, actual issues that need to be dealt with. So again, as I said earlier, if you're looking for help on your path to getting pregnant and having a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby, and you're looking for help with stopping smoking, let us know. We can help with that, and we can include it, of course, in our more general natural fertility protocol, and you can learn more of the details about everything in there, from the diet and the lifestyle and everything that we construct around our natural fertility protocol. You can download our book at naturalfertilitybook.com. That's a free download. And otherwise, I will see you next week.